I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of May 2nd, 2024 to order at 7:28 p.m. If we could all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Welcome everyone tonight. I'm here, Mr. Peck, Ms. Markovitz,
Here.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Ms. Claw, and welcome Ms. Harris.
Here. Jet Harris. Please.
Jet Harris, sorry about that. Mr. Liska.
Here.
Is Ms. Susko here?
She understands she may be late.
Okay. Ms. Uhas? Oh, great. And we have Ms. Sutherland tonight as our recording secretary, and Mr. Mulholland, our zoning official. And our ex officio, Ms. Hardy, is also with us. As usual, we have our public delegation, which is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight? I imagine my fan club, Mrs. McGowan, is here. Come on down.
So I just want to introduce myself to the new people back here, 33 Spinnaker, and I am surprised to see the board, but I have to say I'm not surprised to see who's sitting there. I'm just reminding people that don't know that Ann Thurlow did lose her seat back in November, and yet there she sits again, voting, making decisions. And we have a new person, Debbie Jet Harris, who's sitting now on the board. Last meeting, it was about an hour and 28 minutes into the meeting. You guys vetted Deb Jet Harris again. In the course of the last October, November, December, January, February, March, April, we're in May now, we had an oceanographer come in front of the board. We had an architect come in front of the board. We had a retired Navy man with extensive experience in planning, and we just lost a certified city planner. And now on the board, from my count, we have 1, 2, 3 realtors, and I'm just wanting everyone to know how the board is, what the board looks like as you come and bring your information in front of the board, and how that might, the citizens of East Lyme and the citizens of the state of Connecticut might be viewing this. I don't even know what to say. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. It's a game of musical chairs that only some people know what the music is, and when the needle goes up and down off the record, it's ridiculous. And again, some people think it's funny, but anyway, thank you for letting me speak, 33 Spinnaker. I'll see you in a week or two.
Thank you. Anyone else here tonight? Okay, let's move on. We have a public hearing. It's the application of Eric S. Parker, Esquire, for a proposed text amendment to Section 20.26 of the East Lyme zoning regulations. First, we could read Mr. Mulholland's memo. Nancy, would you like to read that, or would you like someone else to read it? Okay.
Memo to the East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland, zoning office official. The proposed zoning regulation text amendment, section 20.26, date May 2nd. The applicant, Eric S. Parker, Esquire, is proposing the text amendment to the section 2026 of the zoning regulations. As the Commission is aware, the applicant may submit such proposal at any time for consideration by the Board. The Board must process the application within the time frame provided in the applicable general statutes, either denying or modifying or approving any proposal. Section 20 of the zoning regulations is a general section of code which contains a variety of additional regulations. These regulations provide criteria for a number of miscellaneous matters, such as farm stores, filling stations, alcoholic liquor outlets, and many others. Section 2026 is the subject of this application, provides standards for drive-through facilities for banks, financial institutions, pharmacies, bakeries, and fast food restaurants in the CA zones. This section has 12 standards which must be complied with for any of the above noted uses. A copy of the existing regulation is attached. Attorney Parker is proposing to amend this regulation by adding a new section 20.26M. This standard would state in full, 2026M, notwithstanding the foregoing provisions, it is hereby expressly provided that a restaurant or fast food or food service establishment with a drive-through facility may be built or established upon a lot or premises that has no direct ingress or egress onto a state road, and even if such lot is within a radius of 1,000 feet of any part of any other building, lot, or premises used for such purpose. Any establishment must still comply with the requirements of 20.26A through J. This language would allow a drive-through within 1,000 feet of another use with a drive-through as described as above. Presently, 20.26 items K and L require all such facilities to be separated by 1,000 feet. As proposed, the regulation would essentially eliminate this requirement by allowing drive-throughs that aren't accessible from a state road to be established in a CA zone. At question would be whether the proposal would have any adverse impacts on traffic or on state roadways. The Commission should carefully evaluate this proposal to ensure that this regulation, if adopted, would not exacerbate the traffic conditions on state roads such as Flanders roads or any other feeder roads that deliver traffic to these roadways.
Okay. Next, we have a memo from the Planning Commission.
To Ann Thurlow, Chairwoman, East Lyme Zoning Commission, Town of East Lyme, Box 519, Pennsylvania Avenue, Niantic, Connecticut. CGS 8-3A zoning referral CGS 8-3A. The application of East Lyme Zoning Commission to add section 20.26M drive-through on lots with no direct access to a state road. Chairman Thurlow, the East Lyme Planning Commission, at its meeting of April 9, 2024, found the above referenced text amendment consistent with the 2020 East Lyme Plan of Conservation and Development. More specifically, the proposed amendment would support economic development with the caveat that traffic issues need to be addressed and a traffic study should be required. If you have any further questions regarding this letter or the POCD, please do not hesitate to call the Director of Planning, Gary Geschel, at 860-691-4105. Sincerely, Kurt Scott, Secretary of Planning Commission.
And we have one more memo to read into the record from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
To East Lyme Zoning Commission, care of William Holland, zoning official, drawer 519, Niantic, Connecticut 06357, on March 12th. Subject CT Deep LWRD comments on proposed zoning text amendments to section 20.26 regarding drive-through restaurants or food service. Dear Commissioners, thank you for notifying the Land and Water Resources Division of the proposed text amendment noted above, received by mail February 29th, 2024. Acting as the Commissioner's staff, our office has reviewed the revised text amendment for consistency with the policy and standards of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, which is Connecticut General Statute Section 20A90 through 22A112 inclusive, and finds them generally consistent. These comments are made in response to the review requirement contained in the CGS Section 20A-104E, which requires that any zoning regulations or changes thereto affecting the area within the coastal boundary shall be consistent with the policies of CGS Section 22A-92 and the criteria of Section B, Section 22A-102 of the CCMA. These comments do not necessarily reflect the other planning, zoning, or ZBA of considerations that may apply. Further, this section requires that the notification be sent to the Commissioner of Energy and Environmental Protection at least 35 days prior to the commencement of the public hearing. Once notified, our office is responsible for reviewing the proposal's consistency with the policies of Section 22A-92 and the criteria of Section 22A-102B of the CCMA. Should you have any questions regarding this letter or any other coastal management matter, please feel contact me via email, marcyballant@ct.gov. Sincerely, Marcy L. Ballant, Coastal Planner, Land Water Resources Division, Connecticut Department of Energy Environmental Protection, 79 Elm Street, Hartford, Connecticut, 06106. Her phone number is 860-424-3623.
Thank you, Nancy. We have a presenter. If you could state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Eric Parker with Vermano Parker and Associates at 41 New Britain Avenue in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. I'm joined by Joe Wren, who's the engineer working with my clients. I should note that I'm an attorney up in Rocky Hill, but I'm an East Lyme native, and I think this is the first time I've had a municipal application in my hometown, so I'm excited about that. I was excited to see Mrs. Hardy, who I think taught me everything I know. So thank you for having me here. Yeah, same. Everyone in this room probably. So it's nice to be here. I'd also just like to briefly introduce, I'm going to not take a lot of your time on this application, but I would just like to point out, some of you may have heard me telling the audience, the principals of my client. My client is at 269 Flanders Road. It's the Motel 6, Niantic Management LLC. Three of the principals, Chintan, Rakesh, and Sanjay, are back there. I told them it was important for them to be here to support the application. I didn't know that there was going to be a huge truck crash on 95 that would make their trip here from New Jersey take the entire day. But despite that, they followed my instruction and showed up here for your meeting. So if nothing else, I hope you'll give them credit for surviving I-95 on this horrible traffic day. As I mentioned, Joe is here with me as well. And I want to give you a little background how we got to this proposal so that you can understand where my clients are coming from. They purchased the Motel 6 property on April 1st of 2020. So just after the world had shut down and people stopped going to hotels and everyone stopped going out to eat and go places, because this process was already too far down the road for them to put the brakes on it, I went down from my office in Rocky Hill and we did a closing at the Motel 6 where they purchased that property. They had big plans then, and they do now, for making upgrades to the property, doing all sorts of other things at the property, but they bought it at just a historically incredible time to be in the lodging business. They've survived, and they're back to where they expected it to be. They are hopeful to do things like making upgrades to the property, and we began brainstorming ways to do that. As you know, that property sits on a triangular parcel that goes up along I-95, right by where all that construction is happening right now. And it has one boundary of King Arthur Drive, and then there's a 269R rear parcel that was previously split off of it to the rear. So it's, and there's a map here that Joe has prepared. We began looking at what we might be able to do to make a better use of that parcel. And the plan was developed that we may be able to subdivide the parcel to provide a front piece and a rear piece. And Joe has the map here illustrating a feasibility study. Just could this be done? And the answer was yes. We were able to put together a feasibility plan as we have up here. Do you want to show the parts of your map, Joe? Do you want to direct them to it or follow up? Okay. So the upper part obviously is the hotel. The lower triangle would be the piece that they may someday in a separate application obviously be looking to subdivide off there. And then we began looking at what potential uses for that front parcel could be in that location, high visibility, on a commercial strip and in the CA zone. And we kept coming back to uses that would be consumer uses, things like what Mr. Mulholland's memo talked about, things like banks and restaurants and coffee shops. And it seemed to us in our development of this plan that something like a coffee shop, a fast food restaurant, would be the perfect thing to have there. Unfortunately, I'll look through the zoning code, came up with the regulations that are in the two sections preceding the new one that we're proposing tonight, that would require that no drive-through could be placed within 1,000 feet of an existing drive-through. And we looked at our parcel first, and of course, as you may know, directly across the street from that proposed new parcel is perhaps the worst drive-through in the history of mankind. One that has required a temporary barrier that I believe has been there for 10 years-ish. And before that, backups out onto the state road and all sorts of traffic congestion in that parking lot. Interestingly, it's not the only drive-through that would be the 1,000 feet. On the other side of the highway, Daddy's Noodle Bar was initially configured with a drive-through, and that's also within the 1,000-foot radius. Joe has a map that he's going to show to you in a little bit that will illustrate our analysis of the CA zone, particularly along Route 161, is that there is not a single parcel along that stretch, and you see his red circles reflecting the 1,000-foot radius, that could support a new drive-through, which may well be at some point the intent of these regulations. We don't want any more drive-throughs. 1,000-foot radius, you can see all those circles clustered there. Unless you were going to go into the section of the CA zone that goes up Boston Post Road in Flanders, there's no parcels whatsoever, including my clients, that would be able to add a drive-through because of those restrictions. So we started looking at what you'd have to do if you wanted to develop that parcel into something that would have a drive-through. And of course, we'd have two options. One would be to seek a variance from those regulations, and the second would be to seek a text amendment. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to concede that we don't have a hardship, but boy, it would be really hard for me to come up with one. But I'll think hard if I have to. But at this moment, and when we met with town staff, it would be pretty difficult to think of a hardship that would require a drive-through were we to create that new parcel. But we looked at the regulations and we thought the thing that may make our potential new parcel advantageous to this might also be what really differentiates it from those other circles you see there on 161. It's also the only parcel in that section of the CA zone, not looking at Boston Post Road, but just looking at 161, the only one that has ingress and egress not onto a state road. King Arthur Drive is the only way on and off that parcel. Unlike all the other parcels, and we did the analysis, but if you think your way up and down that as you drive that strip, there's not one other piece of property that only goes in and out onto a local road. And so we began thinking, we think that sets our parcel apart, but it also makes it possible to solve some problems. Things like what we see at that drive-through across the street from our parcel, the queuing up of cars, the stacking up of cars, people waiting. Joe did the analysis, and he'll show it to you. There would be sufficient room to have a proper drive-through, the stacking lanes for the cars, the area for the delivery through the drive-up window, ample parking for people who wanted to go inside and didn't want to go up to the drive-through, without any impact on any of the surrounding roads. But then the added advantage that the ingress and egress is not directly out onto that state road that's already busy, but onto King Arthur, which would then be traffic light controlled out onto 161. So that's how we came up with this proposal. We look at this as both an opportunity for my clients to better their property, hopefully both halves of their property. If it gets developed into two different parcels, they can use the possible development of the lower piece to bring some improvements to the upper piece, which I know is something that town staff is very eager to see. But also, I mentioned that drive-through right across the street. And there is perhaps an opportunity to someday, when a lease is up on that parcel, and we don't know any of those details, I represent other landlords who have that same tenant, and I know that they are very long and involved leases, not necessarily long in time, but long in pages. And there may be an opportunity someday to say, hey, you've got a lousy drive-through across the street, maybe we can solve that problem because we have a parcel that can support the right thing. We can't obviously talk about somebody else's tenant, particularly since that potential tenant wouldn't even talk to us unless there was an approved plan. So we're still a long way from that. But that's something that might be able to benefit both sides, not just by helping my clients to better their parcel, but maybe solving a little bit of a nightmare with a drive-through across the street. So we came up with this proposal that would make what makes our parcel different from the others in that zone be the differentiator in this regulation. I will note that in both Mr. Mulholland's memo and in the planning memo, there was talk about a traffic study. This will be a special permit application. So there will be a time, should we come forward with an actual plan, looking for you to bless it and say, after this, yes, you can do what you want to do, there will be time to put those regulations on us or any other project that would come before you based on this amendment. Traffic studies, feasibility of the site, are there stacking lanes, how does everything line up? To me, that's a discussion for another day, because you'll have that opportunity. For today, we think what makes us different, makes this change make sense, and we hope that you'll agree. Joe?
Thank you, Eric. That was very thorough. And for a text amendment, I don't want to really get into any detail of any plan like Eric had mentioned. We're not in front of you for any proposed site plan, or if we walk out of here tonight and you agree with this application, we can't go there tomorrow and request a building permit and start breaking ground and building that. This is just simply to add this amendment to your existing regulations to allow not only this property but other properties that may be similar up and down that strip that may benefit from that. And it's not only the value that would increase of the property, but the value increases, and some of you very well understand this, supply and demand, right? So a lot of retailers, banks and restaurants per se, most of them, probably 80-90% of them now, will not even look at a parcel if a drive-through is not allowed. Even Panera Bread now, their new model, if you can't get a drive-through, you don't get a Panera Bread. Starbucks, in a way, they do have some like Main Street type cafes, like an Old Saybrook, for example, but most of theirs, they need a drive-through. Dunkin' Donuts will not do anything without a drive-through because their standalone stores without a drive-through are dying, and they don't make enough money to sustain themselves. So drive-throughs are very, very critical to sustain a lively business and an upgraded and a modern business view along this stretch. I also live in town. Now, I didn't grow up here. I don't know Miss Hardy. I wish I did. You sound like a great teacher, I assume. I grew up in Northwest Connecticut, but I live here now with my family for the last 17 or 18 years. So there are properties, there are restaurants that do need upgrading, as we know, along Route 161, and we feel that this would open up that opportunity where we would bring new in, and maybe the new would replace some of the old, and the old ones could be repurposed and new life brought into them. But for here, we do have, just going back to that site plan really quickly, so this is just the lower section down. This is King Arthur Drive, and then this here, that is the on-ramp for northbound 95. So this is that lower triangle of this property. But the property is several acres, and this would divide this parcel from the hotel and create this. And then what we did here, just to see if it was even feasible before we brought this to you, we opened up your zoning regulations and went through your drive-through requirements, and this meets every single requirement that you have for a facility of this. You can see that there's a main entrance in and out. You can see that there is a drive-through lane. Just to the right of the drive-through lane, there's an escape lane. So if someone needs to get around that traffic or needs to get out of line really quickly, they have that ability. Plus all of the on-site parking. That is not blocked by the queue lane. You see this at several sites, not just in our town and many other towns, that the traffic that is waiting in line blocks in parking, and it's very frustrating. There have been altercations in this town and another town of people arguing and fighting of being blocked in. So this particular one, your regulations, now the newest regulations, if you follow that, that no longer really is allowed. So this upgrades it. This would probably one of the first drive-through restaurants anyways along 161 that meets all of your current regulations. So we think it's a great opportunity not only for the applicant but for the town of East Lyme as well to do that. So I think with that, if Eric thinks I missed anything, I don't want to get into too many details, but if you have any questions, either one of us could try and answer.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
excuse me, a little bit of housekeeping. Can we mark those both as exhibits 1 and 2?
Sure.
Right.
And Exhibit 1, I think, is the Corners Road drive-through location map. Is that what you call that? So if you could mark that, Joe, that would be helpful.
Sure, yeah, I can give these to you, we could pull them up.
I have small ones, Bill. Would that be helpful, or you prefer the big ones?
Well, he's put them in,
All right.
so they're part of the display. So
Fair
we
enough.
should have those into the record. And just note for the record on Starbucks, with all due respect, this board did not approve the drive-through. That was our zoning board of appeals.
Excuse me, Mr. Mahoney, I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
For the record, this board did not approve the drive-through at Starbucks. That was the zoning board of appeals. They were able to get a variance, and that's why you have that configuration.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification.
At
Thank
this time, does the commission have questions?
For Mr. Parker, I guess. I'm just curious, why did you limit this proposal to just restaurant and food service? I mean, 10 years from now, a bank might want to go in.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we were just thinking about our plan. We'd have no objection to it being broader if that was the commission's desire. To match the other things that would be allowed to have drive-through within that regulation. We simply adapted it based on our suitability for the plan, but you're right, there's no reason it couldn't be.
Okay, thanks. The 1,000 square feet, to answer further, I believe only applies to food service. You can have a bank right next to another bank. That's
I gotta look at this.
kind of...
You're right, Mr. Peck. The K and L only restaurant and food service establishment. So it's been a long enough time since I drafted that I didn't recall that, but you're right, that is why we did it.
So that solves Mr. Foley's question.
So we'll all work this out together.
I have a couple of questions. I'm thinking, the first thing that comes to mind is, say you go down Boston Post Road, somebody decides to, and maybe 10 years from now, for some reason, it's a lot more traffic than it is now. Somebody decides to put a drive-through food service on the corner, and the state of Connecticut decides not going to let you have direct access. Then you'd have up front and center. My thought is, could we add a minimum distance from a state right-of-way? And number two, a minimum distance from another food service drive-through.
So to address your first concern that someone could go up, say, Boston Post Road and add something, remember, this would only get triggered if the parcel was already within 1,000 feet of another drive-through. If it wasn't already within 1,000 feet of another drive-through, those sections don't even apply.
I'm looking way ahead.
Understood.
in time. Maybe there'd be a bunch of fast food someday on the Post Road. Who knows?
Okay. I guess in that hypothetical, then your question, that could work, that could apply. My concern is, I think if you were to do a limit of some sort, I mean, our adjacent parcel on the other side of King Arthur has a drive-through. So speaking just to my client's interest and the reason that we're here today, there is no limit that would allow us to put a drive-through on that parcel, because literally across the street there's a drive-through. So if we reduced the 1,000 feet to 10 feet, I suppose the width of the road, but that's self-serving, but I guess that's my job as their lawyer.
Am I assuming then that we're talking about no hotel being there?
No, it would be a subdivision. The hotel will still be in the back, and so there's multiple steps before this plan. We'd have to subdivide the parcel. It's already had its original
it's kind of
split, so.
hard to see it from here without seeing the second
This
part.
is the subdivision line.
That's the subdivision, and up above it is the hotel.
remaining part of the property.
Okay, gotcha.
This is the access
Some
drive that
distance
goes up.
back.
This is the long access drive that goes up and then opens up to the parking lot. right
Okay,
next to the
that makes it
hotel.
a lot clearer.
The motel would be up above that piece of paper.
It would have been helpful if we had
Before we lose track, I'm trying to
Go ahead, Mr. Peck,
understand
sorry.
your response. I don't understand what you said.
I thought that you had asked if we could put some kind of distance from another drive-through into my
Let's
text amendment.
On the first one was a minimum distance from a state right-of-way.
Okay.
That's my first concern.
And that one can be done. I mean, here, just what we're showing is over 250 feet from the state road.
Maybe we could pick 250. Would you mind adding that on to the regulation or the amendment?
I do.
If I may, are you suggesting the parcel or the entrance
The
to a
parcel-
drive-through?
The parcel
250
to right-of-way.
Because this is not going, the entrance will not be on an arterial state road, it would be on a secondary road, which would be the King Arthur.
I understand.
Okay.
My
So from-
scenario is when a fast food is on the corner of Islander Lane and Boston Post Road. They tear down a house. But the state of Connecticut, because there's so much traffic there, says you're not going to have access from the state road. They do not have direct access, but yet they're going to be right on the corner.
Right.
So I'm suggesting a 250-foot distance from parcel to right-of-way.
It would have to be the entrance, because the parcel in your scenario would be touching Route 1, it would be abutting Route 1, so there's no distance there, zero distance.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
But the entrance, like in this case, where the traffic goes in and out, that would be the distance from the state road.
To maintain the spirit of which you're presenting, I want, personally, the parcel to be 250 feet or whatever number we pick away from the state right-of-way. Because it would be kind of a loophole. If the state did not allow it, they'd still be right up front.
A
And
special permit would be required and a traffic report would be required to show that the queuing and the traffic stays the same. That's number one. Number two, the parcel, no fast food is going to want to be the second lot in from the state road. They're going to want to be exposure, right?
This one is.
The state right-of-way is, all of this is state right-of-way.
This parcel abuts the state right-of-way,
And it
Mr. Peck.
touches Route 161.
Okay. So you wouldn't want 250 feet.
No.
To our driveway, we would be fine with it to our driveway, but not to our parcel, Mr.
I
Peck.
see.
And that's why Bill had that clarification
Okay.
question from
All
the
right.
parcel or the driveway.
And I will add that, obviously, we have talked some time ago, and one of the concerns was, and certainly we're not at a site-specific, we're not really at a site-specific discussion, because it's a text amendment and you're working in your legislative capacity. However, with that said, one of the concerns was stacking on King Arthur. But with the driveway pushed way up the road, it allows for additional stacking, and the thought was that would work.
Yeah.
Certainly when we get to site plan, if we do in special permit, that will be up for discussion.
That makes sense. Driveway to right-of-way. I would feel personally more comfortable to have that kind of,
Yeah, we're comfortable with that. We think that's a good
Amendment.
idea. You wouldn't want to have it 20 feet away because you get one car stopped there to turn in.
And now you're backing into the driveway, yeah.
So here, if you have 250 feet, you have more than 12 cars. That can be.
so now what about minimum distance from another drive-through?
Driveway to driveway?
I guess that's inconsistent with what we,
Well, your
Everything else we do.
original intent when you adopted this, I think it was 2007, was because of the interest on Flanders Road of fast food type restaurants. And as we all know, drive-throughs add frequency of egress onto the highway, a lot more traffic, so the commission at that time wanted to limit that. In this particular instance, in my view, because this parcel has access on King Arthur and it has a light at the intersection, that the traffic would eventually be controlled should this go forward and get back to the commission. And certainly that's another discussion for another day, but
I would just like to see some limit
Because the entrance and exit's really almost directly across the road.
Yeah.
So it's like 49 feet, maybe?
The current drive-through exit is about 250 feet,
Okay.
center to center from where we propose it. And the Route 161 right away is about 300 feet, but we're just using 250 as a minimum. So, maybe just to be on the safe side, say 200 feet between driveways, 250 feet to the right of way, that would work.
I think that's a very good point, because could we put 3 more restaurants right behind it as we go up the road? There's enough land, so that's, I think, is probably a pretty good suggestion.
We're fine with that.
So 200 feet from driveway to driveway.
Minimum. And 250 feet minimum to the
Right.
state right away.
And 200 feet driveway to driveway.
So going up the road to Bill's point, I guess you can still do that, because you'd be more than the 250 as long as you got 200 feet away from the other driveway.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So, you make a very good case for a text amendment, terrific. But this text amendment now affects everybody in town, not just you. That's where I have an issue. I mean, if this was if you came before us with your plan and need it at that time, and not as a text amendment, then that'd be fine. But now everybody who has property in town has now this capability, assuming their parcel meets the rest of the specifications.
Well, the only thing I would clarify on that is, before they can even get to the proposed M, they would have had to have tripped K or L, right? So K or L would say that there's 1,000-foot radius around every drive-through and you can't put a new one in. So you wouldn't need to avail yourself of M. You'd have no reason to avail yourself of M unless you had already been stopped by K or L. So those red circles that Joe put on there are the 1,000-foot radiuses around each drive-through that he was able to identify. So to Mr. Peck's point, if a whole bunch of fast food were to come to Boston Post Road, we could end up with another cluster of those red circles. And then we'd have to evaluate, like he said, as land of court, and see if it, if it could come into play with this. But each of those applications would have already had to come before the commission, site plan approval, traffic studies. So while this is certainly not zoning that would be specific to our parcel, it's zoning to the entire CA zone. But to get to M, you have to first be in one of those red circles, which are all on 161. And of the parcels on 161, only 269 Flanders Road has ingress and egress onto a local road as opposed to a state highway.
If I can add to that too, on this map, the purple is the CA zone, so you can see that follows Route 1 and then also 161. So the drive-throughs are only allowed in the CA zone. So with these circles along the main corridor of Route 161 where drive-throughs would be allowed, you can see there's really no available property. And the text amendment says it has to be on a side road at least 250 feet away from a state road, so it applies to very few parcels. A lot of those that are more than 250 feet in are now in a residence zone or a light industrial zone, no longer in the CA zone. And they wouldn't be able to, just by zoning 101, they wouldn't be able to have a drive-through unless they change their zone as well. So you would have a lot of layers of review and protection, and each one is a special permit, so you have a lot of say in those particular applications.
And just to your first question briefly, and then we'll turn to other matters if others questions, but because of the way K and L are written, this commission couldn't grant us permission absent this text amendment. I mean, it would be a ZBA application. There's nothing that we could do on a new parcel 269 or whatever it will be called to put a drive-through in because of those red circles. And in our case, coming both from across King Arthur from the Starbucks and from the other side of 95, Daddy's Noodle Bar, both have drive-throughs. And so even if one of them were to pack up shop and tear the building down and give up their use for some reason, we got the other one. So there's nothing this commission could do absent us going to ZBA and trying to get a variance, which is why I started with the hardship.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm always a little reluctant to encumber the entire town with a regulation that's specifically intended to address one particular thing. But you've basically convinced me that this would really not encumber many other properties.
Yeah, remember, it's not the entire town, it's just the CA.
Just the CA zone.
And that's what I was kind of forgetting. So
And they teach you pretty early on in this not to put your address in the text amendment, because that's not a...
all right, so, yeah, okay, thank you.
But we have 2 CA zones in town.
They're it's the purple here on Joe's map.
Right, but there's another CA zone.
Yeah, along Route 156, there is some CA commercial in that area too, which is really, I don't think there are any fast food restaurants out there. I don't think there's any fast food restaurants out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at this
Is
time.
that, Bill, is that in the area where the lots are generally smaller?
There are, yeah, there's smaller lots and then it turns residential as you get a little
So you wouldn't be able to get 250 feet back off the road?
Exactly, that's true.
Very, very few lots it would apply to.
That's true.
More than one, but less than, whatever the number is.
Any other questions?
Any questions before we go to the public for comments? Is there anyone here to make comments for the project? Is there anyone here to make comments against the project? Any neutral comments? Nope. Any final questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
We can vote to close the hearing or continue it. Just a reminder, we can close it. Doesn't mean we have to vote on it tonight. I believe we have 65 days from the time they brought that in.
65 days from the close of the public hearing.
Yes. Okay.
I think we can close the hearing.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, move to close the public hearing on this application.
I'll second that.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 600. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Joe, can you mark those in our
So I think we'll move on to the regular meeting. First off, approval of the minutes of April 18th, 2024.
Good to me. Move to accept as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 600, they're approved. So next we have the application of Eric S. Parker, Esquire, for proposed text amendment to Section 20.26 of the East Lyme zoning regulation. We just heard their presentation. Does anyone want to kick off the discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if you choose to, you can continue this because you do have the
Yeah.
65 days. So just
Yeah.
to repeat that, thank you.
Yeah, I think we want to incorporate the 250-foot setback from the state road.
If you choose to continue it, then I can write that up and send that text out so that you see it in its entirety and you have a better chance to review it before you achieve a decision or have a deliberation and achieve that decision.
Yeah, let's do that.
So was the 250 feet the only thing, Norm, or was there another
There were two.
200 from another driveway?
Yeah, driveway to driveway, 200.
Got it.
Okay, would you all like to continue the discussion then until next meeting?
Yes, please.
I mean, does everybody agree with those suggestions?
I'm not sure about the second half of it. I mean, that's strong. I don't know.
I have a question, Mr. Mulholland. It was said whenever the gentleman was, Mr. Parker was up there speaking that in 2007, did it come before zoning then? The same text amendment issue, not from the same applicant, but someone else?
I believe it's 2007, this zoning board initiated the 20.26 language that's in the code in the general section existing as it is today in response to the proliferation of drive-throughs, banks, fast food restaurants, et cetera, the increased traffic, particularly on Flanders Road. So you adopted this regulation as you find it today in the code book.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Does someone want to move to continue our discussion till next time?
I move that we continue discussion on this matter to our next meeting.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that was all 6. Okay, we'll move right along to the application. We have 2 applications, actually, right next to each other. An application of Heather Gardner for Coastal Area Management CAM review for property located at 7 North Drive. Okay, which one's this?
Oak Grove Beach.
That's it. Old Oak Grove Beach Association for construction of a single-family dwelling. We also have the application of Thomas Gardner for Coastal Area Management CAM review for property located at 11-13 North Drive, Oak Grove Beach Association for construction of a single-family dwelling. And we have a memo from Mr. Mulholland regarding both of them.
I've got it.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Mr. Foley can read it if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, Eastline Zoning Commission from William Mulholland regarding coastal area management review, 7 and 11-13 North Drive. Niantic, the applicant's agent, Jim Bernardo, is seeking a review and approval of CAM site plans to construct 2 single-family homes on the properties referenced above. Because the coastal resources, conditions, and topography on and adjacent to the sites are essentially the same, the Commission should review both applications simultaneously. As the Commission is aware, coastal site plan reviews are a state-mandated program authorized in Chapter 444 of the Connecticut State Statutes. The statute delegates legal authority to zoning commissions to adopt regulations and regulate activities not otherwise exempted occurring above the CJL or coastal jurisdiction line as identified by the Connecticut DEEP and within the defined coastal boundary of their respective communities to protect coastal resources and ensure compliance with the CAM Act's coastal goals and policies. The Board is charged with the review of coastal site plans and may approve, modify, or deny activities proposed after evaluating the specific site and considering the potential effects, both beneficial and adverse, of the activities on coastal resources and their consistency with applicable state coastal goals and policies. In acting on a coastal site plan, the Commission must state its findings and reason for the decision. To approve, the Board must find the proposed activity is consistent with all applicable coastal policies and standards, and whether or not any potential adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water development are acceptable. The Board should consider the characteristics of the site, including the location and condition of on-site coastal resources, if any. The Commission must find in an approval that the application is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the Act and that all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent activities. In these subject applications, the applicant is proposing to construct a single-family dwelling on each parcel. The 7 North Drive property is only 10,000 square foot legal, pre-existing, non-conforming lot of record, which was part of a 1953 approved subdivision. The site is in an RU12 zoning district. It is also located in an AE flood zone. The proposed dwelling will be constructed in accordance with the applicable FEMA standards. Tidal wetlands are immediately off-site but essentially abut the lots. However, there is no activity proposed within the tidal wetlands, and the applicant will be installing silt fences during and after construction to mitigate any potential site erosion until the sites are stabilized with vegetation. The 11-13 North lot is identical in all aspects. A single-family dwelling is also proposed for this property. Lot size and zoning classification are the same. The applicant's agent, Jim Bernardo, is here to present the applications and will review both use policies, resources, and project placements. In conclusion, the Commission should carefully consider the applications for consistency with the CAM policies and standards noted above. And there are some sample motions, and thus endeth the letter.
Thank you. Mr. Bernardo, do you want to move ahead?
Sure. My name is Jim Bernardo. I'm a land surveyor here in Connecticut, also licensed in Rhode Island. I'm here representing actually the Gardner family, father and daughter, who are proposing to build houses on these two lots. As you mentioned, they're side by side, so we're just going to kind of talk about both of them together because the situation is pretty much with both with both of them. Bill touched on quite a few of my first comments that I was going to make. Again, it's in an RU12 zone. It's a lot of record from a 1953 approved subdivision. It's a couple of vacant lots that are still left undeveloped. It's served by both municipal water and sewer, and it is in the FEMA zone AE elevation 12. We've had the tidal wetlands delineated by Joseph Thoreau. He's a certified soil scientist, and there's a quick report in your application package from Joe regarding that delineation. On my survey, I've highlighted them in green here up in the northerly corner of the property. This is number 7 on to my left, and number 11-13 is on the opposite side. We're proposing, again, 2 single-family homes. Under your zoning regulations, section 14.2E, which is your coastal area management regulations, typically the construction of a single-family home would be exempt from a CAM application. And I'll read you the section. It says, construction of an individual single-family residential structure, except in or within 100 feet of the following coastal resources, as defined by section 22S-93-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes, tidal wetlands, coastal bluffs, and escarpments, beaches, and dunes. So unfortunately, we are within 100 feet of the tidal wetlands, which I've delineated on my plan here as that magenta highlighted line. So as you can see, both structures are within that 100-foot. Were it not for the tidal wetlands, this would just require, this would be exempt from CAM. It would just need to be in compliance with the FEMA requirements. As Bill said, both houses are going to be built in accordance with the FEMA flood requirements for an AE zone. There'll be flood vents installed, and the elevations will be in accordance with the flood requirements. Let me... So the coastal resources on or adjacent to the property, which I've highlighted on the top of my sheet here in blue. Again, general coastal resources, which is basically everything within the 1,000 feet of the ocean or the Niantic River. So there's general coastal resources. The coastal hazard area, which again is the flood hazard area, which again is an AE elevation 12. And then the other coastal resource is the tidal wetlands. Again, tidal wetlands are on this parcel here and adjacent to the parcel next door. And both of them are, both parcels again are subject to the general coastal resources and the coastal hazard area. As you know, coastal resources encourages water-dependent uses. Unfortunately, this is an R12 zone. If you look at section 6 of your zoning regulations, R12 zone, there's nothing allowed that's water dependent. It's primarily permitted uses are single family, 2-family, and accessory dwellings, and by special permits, bed and breakfast, agriculture or farm use, commercial greenhouses, commercial golf courses or tennis clubs, undertaking establishments, and antique shops. So there are, under your regulations, no water dependent uses that are allowed. And again, coastal area management regulations encourage those particular uses. So when you start to look at the actual applicable coastal uses and activity policies, and it's outlined on page 5 of 8 of your application, there are quite a few items. And in this case, the only item that's pertinent to this particular project is general development. It's not, again, an outline, it's not a water-dependent use, it's not ports and harbors, it's not coastal structures and dredging, it's not boating, it's not fisheries, it's not coastal recreation. Again, none of those items are allowed in your R12 zone. As I mentioned before, as you get down a little further on the list, it says sewer and water lines, and municipal sewer and water are already installed on and the road and servicing the lot. So what the applicant is proposing to do is, again, construct 2 single-family homes. We're going to run the roof drainage. Actually, the Gardners actually own a house across the street, and we're basically building the same. This house here is the same one they built across the street. So the way we address some of the runoff concerns is we're putting what they call a Caltech or a plastic chamber in the ground, which will allow the roof runoff to drain and be infiltrated into the soil. And then we're proposing some sort of a permeable surface, either stone or a pervious pavement surface for the driveway to mitigate some of the runoff. In addition, again, as Bill had mentioned, for soil and erosion control measures, we have a sediment fence along the perimeter, just at the top of the slope before it reaches the inland wetlands. It's shown on both parcels, this side and this side. Temporary stockpiling areas for construction. Again, those are ringed with silt fence or staked hay bales. Should there be any heavy rainstorms, to prevent that from eroding off into the tidal wetlands. Again, this tidal wetlands is the green. And we have tried to minimize the amount of disturbance as much as possible on the lots. And then there's information as far as final stabilization of the property once the construction is complete. We're not anticipating, as part of the coastal area management review, we have to identify any potential adverse impacts to coastal resources. And those are, again, are on your application, page 6 of 8. And we're not anticipating any impacts to the coastal resources, no degradation of the tidal wetlands itself. The houses are going to be constructed in accordance with FEMA requirements. It has to be by the building codes. So there'll be no impact as far as from flooding. And I think that pretty much covers my notes. I went quickly.
Does the
Happy to answer
commission
any
have
questions?
Any questions?
I have a question. It's probably on here, but I don't have my glasses, so I can't see it. It shows on one of the properties, the proposed properties, a multi-level deck. What's the height of that going to be?
Well, the first floor finished floor is 8. I believe because it's serving 2 floors, but it's going to be 1 deck over the top of the other one. I don't know offhand what the elevation of that's going to be.
It will be, the height limitation in that district is 30 feet.
I can't hear you, Bill. Mr.
The
Mahal,
height
sorry.
limitation is 30 feet in that zoning district, which is the same in most districts. And so this house will be well under that.
Okay.
The decks will certainly be significantly lower than 30 feet. They will probably be, the second floor deck will probably be at about 20 feet.
That's what I would say, about 20 feet as well. Yeah.
Plus or minus.
Maybe I missed this. It says there's a canopy hut. Is that staying or going?
No, there's a bunch of little storage and I think some boats and things like that. They belong to the current owner. All those are going.
Okay.
Yeah, all those are going to be removed.
What is the distance of either house? There's a 300-foot upland review area.
That's for inland wetlands. These are tidal wetlands. Inland Wetlands Commission has no jurisdiction.
Yes.
Anybody else? No, I think we're good. Does anyone want to start a discussion or have a motion?
Yeah, I'll start a discussion. I understand that the property's triggered a CAM review, but they just barely triggered a CAM review. I mean, I don't see any adverse effects here at all. It's a residential street with 2 new houses proposed on it. It seems perfectly appropriate. I mean, I have no trouble with this.
I agree with Mike.
I agree as well.
Is there a motion?
Well, yeah, okay. There's 2 different applications, so we'll do them one at a time, I think.
Yes, thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve the application of Heather Gardner for coastal area management review for property located at 7 North Drive, Oak Grove Beach Association for construction of a single-family dwelling. Reasons: applicant is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act. Applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent uses.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstain? It passed 600.
Further move to approve the application of Thomas Gardner for coastal area management review for property located at 11-13 North Drive, Oak Grove Beach Association for construction of a single-family dwelling. Reasons, and this will sound familiar, applicant is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act. Applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both the coastal resources and future water-dependent uses.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passed 600.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along, we have an application of Old Black Point Association Incorporated for a coastal area management site plan review for demolition of existing beach cabanas and decking and reconstructing the structure at property located at 201 Old Black Point Road, Niantic, Assessor Map 02.1, Lot 13. We have another memo. Does someone have that one? Here we go. This one, do you need that?
do you want me to read it now? It's okay. East Lyme Zoning Commission, William Mulholland, zoning official, coastal area management review, 201 Old Black Point Road, Niantic, date May 1st, 2024. In this application, the Black Point Association Incorporated is proposing to make significant modifications to its existing beach club property at the 201 Black Point site. Presently, the site consists of 4 buildings and a wooden deck structure. The structures occupy an upland area on just above the beach. This is a historical use of the property, providing a recreational venue for the association's membership. It is proposed to demo the existing beach cabanas and decking and reconstruct the structure to conform to present FEMA standards and provide additional accessibility. The site is zone RU-40 and is in a VE-13 and AE-13 flood zone. This is a 17.25-acre site consisting of beach, uplands, and tidal marsh areas. The proposed activity is limited to the immediate beach club structures. Joe Wren, the applicant's engineer, is present and will review the CAM application, identifying both coastal resources and policies applicable to this project. Upon review of the commission must find that the application is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the act, and that all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water dependent activities. Motion to approve application of Old Black, oh sorry.
Okay, I don't need to say anything.
Anything right then.
Mr. Wren, go ahead.
Good evening once again. My name is Joe Wren, professional engineer of Indigo in Old Saybrook. With me are Sabrina and Kelsey from Point One Architects in Old Lyme, who designed the structure. This is down at Old Black Point Beach Association. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar. You may know where it is, but if you're not a resident, you may have never gone down the driveway and to see what's there. You may have seen it from the water, boating or kayaking or something. But this is kind of a special area. It's been a beach cabana for a very, very long time for residents of OBPA, Old Black Point Association. There's a long swim pair that you could see there in the left corner of the plan. That was recently reconstructed. That was a DEP project. That was done. And as a second phase of the work, they would like to rebuild, and the purpose of this application is rebuild their beach cabanas. So on the site plan, the pale yellow is the location of the current beach cabana. As you can see, it's quite a bit closer to the water. With this, they are pushing it a little bit back further from the beach, but most importantly, they are making it FEMA compliant. Currently, Currently, it is not FEMA compliant. It is it's in a VE flood zone. I'll wait till Bill passes that out. Currently, the entire area, it's between the tidal marsh to the north and then Long Island Sound to the south, and it's in a VE flood zone, which we all know is the velocity zone. So the structures are completely within that VE velocity zone now. And with the design by point one in the site plan, it lifts it up above that, so it's fully not only compliant with FEMA codes, but also your local flood ordinance, which adds an additional foot to that level. So all of the cabanas will be up above that. Right now, it's more or less sitting on the ground, and it's a dune remnant, so it's all sand through there. So with this lifting up, now we open up the sand underneath too, since it'll be 7-8 feet off the ground, to animals and wildlife that currently, unless they walk on the deck structure or kind of curry underneath, they can't really utilize that area. But this is lifting it up off the sand. It makes it a little bit more environmentally conscious. Another thing that we're doing as part of this application is on the driveway itself. A minor thing, we have a little bit of wetlands here as you enter in, then it quickly turns into tidal wetlands. There's a little low point that floods kind of on a daily tidal basis, so we're raising the driveway there just with by about a foot or so, no more than a foot, and then it tapers out as you go east and west. But in the northwest corner there where you see that green, currently there's excess asphalt there that's not really needed for anything, and it is within your 25-foot tidal wetland buffer. So what we're doing as part of this project is removing that asphalt within the 25-foot tidal wetland buffer and creating a planted buffer, tidal wetland buffer, with all native plant species. We have a planting schedule on here. They're all native plantings that grow in that type of environment. So not only are we reducing the impervious surface on the site, we're adding those plantings and supplementing and augmenting that buffer that doesn't really exist right now. It's just pavement almost right up to the edge of the wetlands. So we're definitely improving that as well. Lastly, before I turn it over to the architects, is there's a current septic system there. It does not meet current health code. So if you could see on here, just to the right of there's a little rectangle to the right of the cabana structures. We're replacing that septic system with a health code compliant, 2024 health code compliant septic system. So that's better for the groundwater as well, of course. That has been approved by Ledge Light Health District. And also, we went to inland wetlands first, which obviously is required by statute before zoning can make a decision. We went through inland wetlands because, as you know, they now have a 300-foot review area. So with the wetlands here, almost the entire cabana structure is within the 300 feet from the inland wetlands. So we did have to go in front of them. We had a site walk with them. We had 2 meetings. They did approve this project unanimously. So we do have health approval. We do have wetlands approval. The final step is to come in front of the Zoning Commission for coastal area management. We created these plans. We filled out the coastal area management application, provided all that to the town, and as our final hurrah, we're in front of you presenting it. So without further ado, I'll let Sabrina and or Kelsey or both show you what it looks like in plan view and section view, and then if you have any questions.
I have a really quick question, if
Okay.
you don't mind. It's
Yeah.
about the leaching field. Are you changing the location of where all the septic system and everything is going to be?
Yeah, the leaching field is just to the east of the cabana right now. It's over in this area, and within that area there's an underground power line, there's an underground water line, and it's a little close to the construction. For the construction here, and Sabrina could show you, but it all needs piles driven, so it can be elevated up above the sand area. So we relocated out of that area where it currently is, and we shifted it slightly to the east. It is more than 100 feet away from the inland wetlands, kind of centers it between the wetlands to the north and Long Island Sound to the south, and it's all sand, as you might assume. And we have quite a few feet of separation from the groundwater level to the bottom of the system. And then, again, it's all approved by Ledgely. Okay?
Thank you.
Replace.
Good evening. I'm Sabrina Folk from Point One Architects, and Kelsey Janis is with me as well. And what we were tasked to do was to bring the original cabanas into compliance, FEMA compliance. And so really what that means is taking the existing cabanas, removing them, building a new deck structure that is compliant, in which we can put new cabanas on top of. So what you're seeing here is just a very basic layout of piles. I think they're every 8 feet on center in both directions. We're trying to keep it very straightforward so that it's easy to build, believe it or not. And we understand that the same person who did the dock is going to has been tasked to do the piers as well and the whole deck. So they are increasing the number of cabanas, but I'm not sure that that's really relevant. What we've done is we've put the deck structures in 2 different height levels. This is the highest level, stepping down, and then the lowest level is 7 feet, which is the existing height. So a combination of getting the cabanas themselves out of the water, and the structure itself is actually not, it's all waterproof materials, so it is allowed to be in this velocity zone, but the preference is, so that they're not repairing it every single year, is to get as much of it out of the V zone as possible. This illustration is showing you the proposed piers that are piles that are going to be placed. The red drawing is showing the original location of the cabanas. So they were very close to the sand, and this is the maximum height of them. Basically, we're just taking the same structure and elevating it. So we're not making anything new. They were very happy with the historic nature of the original cabanas. They had been well thought out by a local architect, and so we were trying to be respectful of what was there. We have a lot of different renderings of the same thing, all sorts of different views to show you options, but that's pretty much the gist of the project. Yes.
What is the material for the siding or the shingles or siding or whatever it's going to be?
So the existing siding that's on the cabanas now, we believe, is cedar siding, and so I think money is going to become a factor, but we may just go back and put the cedar again. It's had a good lifespan. It's just that product. There are new wood products that are potentially could have a longer lifespan, but they have not decided upon that. I think it's going to be financially driven. There's no interest in putting in a vinyl siding or anything that would be contra to what this deck and this whole structure is originally. Really, if we could reuse the existing structures, we would. That was something we considered, but they're actually, the way they were designed, there are some glitches, and the way water falls against the next vertical of the cabanas, it's just completely rotting out. So we had to fix that design, and so we did that by changing the direction, the angle of the sawtooth roof, so that it would no longer fall onto each other.
And what kind of fencing is around the upper level, now that it's high up off the ground?
Oh, cable rail. That will be done a combination of metal, cable rail, and wood.
What do you expect the life expectancy is of that of this new building?
Well, so the piers, the part that's going to be in the ground, is going to be built out of the same piles that were used on the dock. So it's I don't know what the life expectancy of a dock is. 100 plus for a dock. I mean, it's going to be the same material.
So, do I understand the current problem is that A, the cabanas are rotting, and B, they're almost underwater?
Well, currently they're right at grade. They're right at the beach. So what's happening is the water comes up and hits the lower deck level of the cabanas and is continuing to rot. I mean, this is not good for the area as well, because really what we want is the water to flow freely underneath these cabanas. Like,
I'm not, I'm just trying to understand
yes.
what's happening here.
What's happening is that the water is literally pushing the sand in, and the beach is getting smaller and smaller, and it's backing up where it hits the cabanas. And so we need to lift the cabanas up so that nature can take its course and just let the beach be what it wants to be.
But this structure is somewhat time over years limited if it has wooden siding.
If it has wooden siding,
Well,
or,
then the sea levels are rising.
yep,
So it makes sense to me that eventually, even though the cabanas are now at the water's edge or into the water, this is eventually going to have the same issue.
well, that's a good point. I mean, what they've done is the base flood elevation that we've been given by FEMA has told us a certain level, and the state of Connecticut has taken that number and lifted it an additional 12 inches. So any structure that is 12 inches higher than the base flood elevation, which we now call the design flood elevation, everything from that point up has to be, well, anything from that point down would need to be of a waterproof material. So the structure, the vertical piles will be water resistant. The horizontal members holding up our deck will be water resistant. So I appreciate what you're saying, that this will continue to deteriorate. However, the building itself, the structure, just like the dock, will remain.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Can I just,
Yeah.
there's these pillow things.
Is it just the tents? Those are sunshades that, so we are just going to attach sunshades on the upper deck so that we can create some shade areas on the deck.
Is that an umbrella?
A sail?
Sure. It's like a sail.
Like a sailing boat?
Oh, okay. I was just trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah, they're removable. So in the winter, those will be removed. So
Okay, I'm just curious.
I think it's great you're taking out a lot of the asphalt and making a compliant septic tank, so those are two good improvements.
And the native plants,
Yeah.
which we love.
yeah.
Thank you. And the big one is the FEMA compliance too.
Yes.
Literally right now, the cabanas are just a couple of feet off the ground, and these are going to be, the deck of this is going to be about 7 to 8 feet
7
off the
feet.
ground.
Yeah.
And I saw the ramp you put in for those who can't do the stairs.
100%. It'll be
ADA
ADA access.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask Joe if he could briefly review his coastal resources and policies in your report, so I can have those into the record.
Mhm.
And could you review your S&E plan as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, the S&E would be part of the
So,
CAM. I'll switch back to the site plan. All right, so coastal resources as listed in that CAM application. Of course, we have flood zone. We have pretty much everything. We have inland wetlands, tidal wetlands, sandy shoreline, beach. There's some forested, top of dune. There's some sand dune remnant in there as well. And of course, the FEMA flood zone that we talked a lot about. So we have, the site is a sensitive site, of course. Has all of those things. That's why we're really in front of you. It trips the coastal area management application, and everything that we're doing here, everything that we already discussed improving the septic system to improve the water quality, eliminating some impervious area where we can. It's a couple thousand square feet, I believe. It's around 1,700 square feet, which is, pretty considerable. It's not required as part of this project, but it was done just to, East Lyme has a 25-foot buffer from tidal wetlands. So we put that offset line on the map, and we saw some areas where the driveway is in there. There's nowhere we can go because we have wetlands on both sides, so we can't eliminate impervious there. But in that northwest corner, we did have that opportunity to do it, and we did offer that on the plan. And the association was, they like that. They think it'll dress up the area, and it's better for the wetlands and the environment. Lifting this above and making it FEMA compliant is huge consistency with the Coastal Connecticut Management Act. One of the very first things that they look at is FEMA compliance. We're in a VE elevation 13 flood zone here, which in the town of East Lyme adds a foot to that. And since it's VE, that has to be to the top of the foundation or the bottom of essentially the floor joists of the deck. So that's what makes the deck elevation at least 15, where the ground is 7 or 8, depending on where you look around there. So it's 7 or 8 feet off of the ground, whereas right now it's basically sitting on the ground. So if we did have a major coastal flood come through there, it would break this apart, it would move it, dislodge it, and create property damage and, potentially, threat to life and safety and so forth. But being up above that, the water is now able just to flush through and flush out, go in around all those pilings, and then just return to normal after the storm subsides. So that's the way that it's designed. So all of those things together improve water quality, reduce stormwater runoff, and then meet the FEMA code. So we think that we've kind of checked all the boxes, if not most of them, that the CCMA looks for. The ENS controls, this is all sand, so there's really, we do have silt fence applied here and so forth. However, it is all pure sand. There is no topsoil layer. Your topsoil layer is where you get your silts that create mud. Here, even if we had a big pile of sand, it doesn't create mud because it's just sand. You know that from playing on the beach. So we don't expect any, but of course we do show silt fence around there. We show silt fence around the parking lot too in that northwest area. If silt fence can't go in because there's a hard surface or a paved surface, we have hay bales, of course, because you can't drive wood stakes easily through asphalt. And we have an area, you can see that hatched area in the northwest corner, that will be for construction staging for vehicles. All the piles, 40 feet long. How long are they, the piles? Do we know? Yeah, how long? We don't know yet. So they could be, 30 to 40 feet long, those piles, to support. So we have to have lay-down area when they're delivered to the site, and that's what that area is for. And we have of course, the silt fencing around there to prevent any sort of, even if there's something that's not sand, from migrating beyond the construction area.
How long a project is this?
Have a guess, Sabrina? It's quite a duration because there are those piles on here, all the green dots that Sabrina mentioned before, all of those are piles, and they all have to be driven through the sand to support the structure. So that, just the pile drive in itself, probably will take several weeks, I would imagine. And then to construct all the rest and the ramps and everything, I would have to think that it's going to take them at least 2 months to do all the work.
Probably a 4-month total.
Yeah, to do all the finish work and the siding and everything. So too aggressively in 4 months. I know that these guys, the marina construction guys, they like to finish projects well but quickly because they have to move on to the next one because they just have these small time frames in between seasons that they're allowed to do things with environmental restrictions or boating restrictions. So they do like to work very efficiently and get things done, but 4 months I think would be a reasonable maximum time frame.
Anybody else? We're good? Okay, thank you so much.
Great, you're welcome. Thank you.
I don't see any reason to deny it. Anyone have any comments?
Sounds like a great project and improving greatly upon what is there now.
I like that the ocean, the water can have that free flowing, keep its rhythm and stuff, and the native plants, which, you know, is very important, so we do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve
I second.
the application
Oh, sorry.
of Old Black Point Association Incorporated for coastal area management site plan review for demolition of existing beach cabanas and decking and reconstruction of the structure at property located at 201 Old Black Point Road, Niantic, Assessor's Map 02.1, Lot 13. The reasons being, the application is consistent with the oral application goals and conditions of the CAM Act, and the applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impact of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent uses.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? I believe it passed 600.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more application tonight. It's the application of Glenn Carlson for site plan review for expansion of premises limited to 2 Knickerbocker Lane, Mount Tabor Woods, Niantic, Assessor Map 21.2, Lot 47, Unit 10. And we do have a memo to read from Mr. Mulholland.
East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland, zoning official. Proposed site plan amendment, Sleepy Hollow Hills Elderly Housing Development, 2 Knickerbocker Lane, May 2nd, 2024. The applicants, Glenn and Linda Carlson, are proposing to construct a 3-season room on an existing deck at the home referenced above. Because the home is in an elderly housing district, the site plan review authority lies with the zoning board. As the board may recall, it recently performed such a review for a site in the Spinnaker Elderly Housing Development. In their proposal, the applicants would like to construct a 3-season room on a first-floor existing deck. The deck currently conforms to all applicable setbacks and lot coverage requirements. The subject home, at the time of construction, was not equipped with such a room. Other homes in the development originally were constructed with such a space. I note that the HOA has given approval for the application. In conclusion, the Commission should carefully evaluate the application to ensure that there are no adverse impacts from the proposed activity.
Thank you. Would you like to present? If you could give your name and address.
Sure. My name is Glenn Carlson, and my address is 2 Knickerbocker Lane, Niantic. I'm here tonight with my wife, Linda. She's over here, and also with Mike Mirabito. Mike is the vice president of our homeowners association. So, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. My wife and I have been dreaming of this for a long time, and hopefully it's going to come to fruition, I hope. So, we are longtime residents of the town. We moved here in 1980 with our young family, and our kids went through all the schools in town. And Mrs. Hardy may or may not remember our kids, but if she does remember them, I hope it's for good reasons anyway. But anyway, we are now retired, and in 2018, we purchased our current home at 2 Knickerbocker Lane. The house was built 2-3 years before that, and I think initially, it's my understanding that it served as a model for the development. And it was eventually purchased by a person, and they lived in the home for about a year, and then they sold the home to us. So as I said, we've been there for almost 6 years now. I think next month it'll be a full 6 years. So the home has a deck, and I guess you have some kind of handouts there which might show like
have all the materials that's brought in.
Okay, all right.
So you have them in your packet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some maps on there that shows, where Sleepy Hollow Hills is, at the end of, oh, thank you. Okay. At the end of Sleepy Hollow Road. And then one of the maps there shows the original site plan of the home. And So it, as you can see, the deck, there it is. The deck is at, one of the corners of the house, okay? And basically it ends up squaring off the footprint of the house. It's about 15 feet by 12 feet in size. So what we are proposing is to keep the deck this exact same size that it is, and just to build a 3-season sunroom on top of it. Some of the other pages in your handouts show some photos of sunrooms throughout our development. We have, I think, right now, currently, I think, about 38 or 39 homes in development. 2 of them are still under construction, 1 nearly finished. But better than half of the homes have sunrooms. And there are several different styles of homes within the neighborhood, and there are several of which are the same style as ours, and some of those do have sunrooms. Some do, some don't. Again, what we are proposing then is, I think, also shown probably on the very last 2 pages of the photos. One photo shows our deck as it currently is, the existing deck. And then if you flip it over, and it didn't print out very well, or copy very well, but what we're proposing is basically, if you can see that picture, that basically shows what we are proposing to do. So the footprint of the home will remain the same. So one of the reasons for moving into the Sleepy Hollow Hills development was because we wanted to have a home that was better suited for retirement living. We're both in our 70s now, and we both have orthopedic issues. Linda more so than myself. She's had 3 knee operations, and she only has 2 knees, but she's had 3 surgeries, 3 replacement surgeries, and she still has issues. She still has some pain, and sometimes, some days are better than others, but some days it's difficult to get up and walk around and so on. For myself, I'm feeling my knees more and more, and especially like going down a slope or going down the stairs. And I hope I don't have to resort to a knee surgery someday, but we'll see. But anyway, if we could, we would like to add the sunroom, partly because we would like to expand our first floor living. Our home right now has two levels, 2 floors, and the upper level has a family room and a spare bedroom. And the family room, actually, we like to use it a lot because it's a very cozy and comfortable room. But we can also, looking to the future, it's going to be it's becoming more and more difficult for us to get up and down the stairs. And by being able to expand our first floor living space, we just feel that would be much more amenable to us as, once the stairs become too difficult. So we put in a request to our board, and they reviewed our request, for this project, and basically they all unanimously approved of it. Some person driving into the neighborhood, and if they saw that we had one of these sunrooms on our deck, I really don't think they would feel that it would be out of place for the neighborhood, because we have many of them. And what we hope to do is to have the exterior of the sunroom to basically blend in with the rest of the house in terms of siding and windows and things like that. So we're trying to keep our project, on the modest side. We're not trying to put up a 3-car garage or anything like that on our property. All right, we don't have a need for that, but we would really like to be able to expand our first floor living, again, especially thinking towards the future. So I guess...
I certainly don't have a problem with it, and you answered my question because the drawing's a little sketchy.
Okay, all right,
But
yeah.
you'll continue the same siding and you'll use the same window color trim and,
Exactly,
Okay.
yes, yes. Some of the pictures in there are of ones that are of homes that have the same floor plan, and basically what they have is what we're hoping to build as well.
So, knowing that you have orthopedic issues, why is it that you only want to do a 3-season room? Why do you not want to do a 4-season room?
I think part of it is expense. To do a 4-season room would require insulation and heating and probably cooling and things like that. We're not really looking for that. We have spent, for the past several winters, we have spent some time in Florida. So there really hasn't been a need for it. But again, I think we're just trying to keep the project more modest and thinking that it probably would have a better chance of approval by you folks if we kept it relatively simple.
So the picture of the deck, that's in the back of the house?
Yes, that is in the back corner of the house. That's right.
Any other
I'm good.
comments or questions?
No, I'm good.
Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I can read a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application of Glenn and Linda Carlson for the site plan review for modification limited to 2 Knickerbocker Lane, Sleepy Hollow Hills, Niantic, Assessor Map 02.1, Lot 13.
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? I think another 6-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Yeah.
night.
Enjoy your sunroom. Old business. I hear next meeting we might be able to knock the outdoor lighting off our list.
Even though we're not meeting every week, and things
Next
are starting
meeting,
to slow, the
yeah.
spring pushes over, so there should be more time to sit down and go through this. I'll have to meet with Norm, and we will be doing that.
Okay.
I'm not ready to hear it.
Same with the text amendment and Attorney Bleasdale. So we'll move on to new business that's coming up. We will be having an application of Janet Vellen for Rosa Negra for renewal of a special permit for outdoor dining at 214 Flanders Road in Niantic. We will be hearing, and this might be news, application of Kristen Clark, P.E., for conceptual site plan approval for an age-restricted affordable housing rental community per Connecticut General Statute 830G. I believe they're coming back with an amended plan.
That's correct, and we will schedule that tentatively, I think, the first meeting in June, but I've got to go back over the schedule. But we will schedule it, we only have 65 days for the whole process.
Is this going to be a public hearing again?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Is this for the same project?
Don't make me
Or
laugh.
Basically
We
the
haven't done a
same.
thorough review at staff level yet, but essentially an amended, an adjusted proposal.
Unless they've figured out a way to relocate Route 1.
Well, we shall see. You will have a public hearing.
Any business on the floor, if any, by the majority of the commission? Go ahead.
Can I bring up new business then or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah,
Okay, so I would like to discuss an agenda change.
okay.
So, I would like to discuss the agenda change of moving public delegations to the end after we've done all of our business and heard the applicants and applications and public hearings and everything. I think that it gives people, the reason why I feel that we should do it is because it gives people the time to really express really what they want to do. And I think a lot of times, like when I sat at the meeting last time, I think that it would do the public good to have it at the end, so they would feel like, they have enough time. And sometimes people, they need a few minutes or so to collect their thoughts on things.
And where exactly in the agenda are you suggesting? After old business, new business?
Yeah, I'm suggesting it to go either in new business or after new business.
I don't see any reason for doing that. I mean, a lot of the time, people that come in to speak on public delegations, they don't want to necessarily sit through our whole meeting. They want to come in and say what they have to say and go, or they want to, yeah. So I don't think it's necessary to move it.
Okay.
I would be in favor of moving it. I think people really interested in zoning wouldn't mind sitting through and hearing zoning. And I think closer to the election, there's a tendency to use it for a political theater. But that's just my opinion.
Well, even if it is for political theater, I think that's a person's right. And I don't think we need to move it to the end.
It's okay. They're still getting to have their say. It's not like they're not going to be able to still do that.
Where do other boards have their delegations set? I know selectmen do it at the beginning of their meeting.
I think they're at the end.
They do both, actually.
I think theirs is at the end. I'm
Yeah,
not
theirs is
sure
at
what
the end.
everybody else is doing.
They do delegations first and then public comment at the end, which sounds like the same thing, but
Because
it's
their
not exactly.
delegation, though, you can talk about what's on the agenda, like our hearing, but their public comment is saying anything, which is the same as our public delegation. It's reversed.
And your point is?
That they have the public comment at the end. That's my point.
I'm a little hesitant. I don't like change too much of any kind. But,
7 o'clock or 7:30?
I'm thinking, if we have a 4 or 5 hour meeting, I would not want to discourage anybody from speaking. And that might discourage people. I'm happy the way it is.
Yeah, I think we need to keep things way above board, and there might be a lot of discussion about why we're moving it.
I didn't suggest it because it wasn't above board.
Well, I'm not suggesting
Well,
that,
just to
Deb.
put it out there. I
I'm not
didn't suggest it to
suggesting that
create
at
an
all.
atmosphere of not being above board.
I don't know if we can vote on it. I don't know if we have 4 votes, but if you want to make a motion.
I make a motion to move the agenda to to move the item on the agenda, public delegations, to put it in the new business section on the agenda.
In new business or after new business?
It could be after new business or in new business. So-
Excuse me briefly, you'd have to modify the bylaws too, just to move it.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
So
Change the bylaws,
Is your
yes.
motion for both?
Yes. Thank you, Bill. I meant Mr. Mahone.
Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in
Yeah, wait a
favor?
minute.
Do you want to discuss? Yeah, go ahead.
With the climate that's going on the last 6 months, somehow, some way, this move, if it's passed, we might be accused of discouraging public comment.
I would agree
Somehow.
with Norm.
So
Well, we don't want people to say that. I withdraw the motion.
I don't want to.
Okay.
Take
I withdraw it.
take
I don't
that
want to
chance.
cause that problem.
I don't want to take that chance.
Okay, and then I agree. With motion withdrawn.
Okay. Moving on, zoning official, Mr.
I
Mahoney.
have nothing. I will get to those other items as soon as possible.
I was going to ask if we could send a letter to the SIF people. They've had like dead trees in the back, at least 2 for
I'll
about
be
a
very
year.
happy, so noted. We will send them one.
Okay.
Mr. Mahone, do you have any time frame on when we're going to get the information requested for the affordable housing?
I will say this, we're almost in weekly contact with Tim Bleasdale, if not almost daily lately. Some of the issues have been late arrival information from some of our affordable housing developments from their team, because we have to count everything, we have to have COs for everything. Actually, Janet's done a great job of doing a lot of research. She's talking to Tim's office all the time. We are closing in on it, and as she's nodding, and so it's much of it's already with Tim. He's already started to look at it, but he is, how shall I say, appropriately meticulous. He doesn't want to make any kind of being our legal counsel, he doesn't want to make any kind of formal effort until they're ready to go and all the T's are crossed and I's dotted.
Understandable.
So-
When did we initially ask him to do this? Wasn't it like 4 months ago?
Well, there was a lot of information gathered by some staff, and there was a lot of late information coming in. And then there was difficulty documenting some of the smaller little developments. You'd be surprised what's out there that's affordable. And if we can count it, we wanted to count it. There were some duplexes that we might be able to count, but we had to verify. We found that we were missing some COs, so we had to search for those. A lot of stuff's in the vault, and then finding staff time to do it. This is not hit a button on a computer and it compiles. Hopefully, when this is all done, we will be able to do things like that. So a lot of time is going into it. I think Janet has worked on that the last few days, gathering final information, and we think our end of it will be completely done. We hope by Monday, and that stuff will go to Tim, and we'll see what Tim has to offer.
Thank you for that
Yep, you're welcome.
explanation. Also, too,
In fact, the chair has seen some of the correspondence on that.
I would like to thank Jessica Larocco. Is that how you say her last name? Larocco? Larocco. I noticed that on the website, now the materials and stuff have been put in there. And I want to
Yes.
say thank you so much because that's very, very helpful. Thank you, Denise. Because that way we can look at it before and,
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and
And I think it's important that the public gets to see that too. So they see they get what we get, and I think that that's important. So thank you very much for that change.
welcome, and given the pace of this spring with this board and on a daily basis, and even though we've increased one part-time admin to full-time, we are still all stretched. But things look like they're going to slow down enough where we can start catching up again and make some headway on some of the other things we want to talk about. So thank you.
Ms. Hardy, do you have anything for us tonight?
The board has just received an interim report from the Ad Hoc Short-Term Rental Committee. It's 20 pages. I haven't finished reading it yet. We just got it last night. But they've worked very diligently on this, and it's pretty much in its final form. But there are several court cases that have to be decided nationally in regards to this issue of regulating short-term rentals. So we aren't the only community that's dealing with this. And the final report is going to be dependent on the outcome of some of those court decisions. But I think that parts of this might be interesting to some members of the Zoning Commission, and certainly for some background. So it's 20 pages. You can get a copy at Town Hall, have a copy made if you'd like, if you're interested in reading any of it. I don't know, Bill, if you've had an opportunity to look at it yet.
I have not yet.
But they've worked very hard, and it is a very well-written report, well-researched, and they have worked on this for over a year already.
And I believe they'll be presenting it to you May 15th at your Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a way to get a copy of that on the town website?
I believe it is on the town website, and if not, you can request a copy be made for you at Town Hall. Okay. So
Brooke actually can get you a copy.
I'm sorry?
Brooke.
Oh, Brooke, of course you can.
Clerk's office.
Okay, so unfortunately, some rather sad news that there's been a considerable amount of vandalism at Brookside Farm at the museum, which is going to require some considerable expense to take care of that vandalism. And furthermore, Last week, the restrooms at the Cooks were vandalized, again causing a considerable amount of damage and very, very costly. The restrooms are going to have to be closed for a certain time, and it's unfortunate that this is the type of thing that's happening in our own community. For example, in the month of February, the police department had 1,149 calls for service.
Wow.
So, of course, it wasn't all criminal activity. In some cases, there were other incidences, but still, I think that most people aren't aware of that amount of activity within the town. So, voting. We have the annual town meeting on May 13th, when in person any comments can be made relative to the budget. And then the actual referendum will take place on May 23rd, hours 8 to 8 at the community center. And it is referendum only, in-person voting. There are no absentee ballots. Unfortunately, Mr. Eugene Cushman, who's been our town moderator for many years, has resigned, and the board has selected Mark Solano, who probably many of you know, having previously served on the Board of Selectmen, and he has been appointed as the new town moderator. We usually have a deputy. If any of you are interested in a little more nighttime activity, then somebody might be interested in applying for the position of deputy town moderator. So I think briefly, we've had a rather lengthy meeting this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. Okay, I'm done. Have a good evening.
Nope, I don't have any correspondence with me, so do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. It's adjourned. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.